Now, throughout the book of James, I hope that you have seen this. I hope that you can think through a few things. I hope that you know that the book of James, he's giving us practical ways of what normal, growing faith should look like, because he's writing to very immature believers who don't exhibit these characteristics. And not exhibiting those characteristics, he's getting to the root of the problem, which is their faith that has kind of stalled maybe a little bit. And so he writes this practical thing, and really you can come back and see that he says it's all about this double-mindedness. That's what has thwarted you, is that you have a mind on, yes, Lord, that's awesome, but then you also have, part of your mind is stuck on the earth, thinking this stuff will satisfy. And what causes that double-mindedness is pride, and it runs deep. Whether or not you know it or not, it runs incredibly deep. And so he's been talking often about how this disease, this sickness of pride in our lives manifests itself in our lives practically. And so I just want us to look. We're gonna back up here. Maybe I don't have it turned on. There we go. I've got it turned on now. Just when we look, and we're going to go kind of a backward strategy here. You've got pride in our prayers. Remember that he's praying. We just talked about this last week, that we only want to use it on us. And if you back up before that, there's pride in wisdom, the worldly wisdom. It was all about us, self-centered. It was earthly, natural, demonic. And we looked at Satan and how it was all about worshiping himself and glorifying himself. And the wisdom of the world is all self-centered. We looked at that. We looked at pride in speech and how your tongue will boast about all sorts of things. You will make yourself look good by thinking you can make others look bad. We looked at pride in works, where some were arguing that works, the gift of actually doing something good with my life, that's actually like a spiritual gift. And I just don't have it. And so I'm okay. I'll do my own thing. Thank you very much. There was pride and arrogance that was stopping them in that area. Pride in the treatment of others, of playing favoritisms. Like, if I can get something from you, if you can help my position, then I'll treat you kindly. If not, never mind, because it's all about how I view you and what I can get from you. We looked at pride blames God for temptation. We talked about that. It's been a while ago, and we didn't necessarily use these words, but this has been a theme all the way throughout the book of James. And I'm tempted, it's God's fault. I don't take any ownership. It's pride underneath it. Pride, it keeps us from even asking for wisdom. I don't need it. I've already arrived. And so this theme he's been trying to pull to the surface, like, you're immature people, you need to grow, and practically this is what it's going to look like. And the thing that stops you is pride, which manifests itself through this double vision, this double-mindedness. You're not fully convinced that God is it. You think other things will satisfy. You think this life is far more important than maybe what it really, really is. You don't think about eternity. Your lens is just here, now, and therefore your problems that are here and now that are really just, you turn them into mountains. So tonight we're going to look at how normal, growing faith is flexible. We're going to talk about how you plan, and planning can reveal the condition of your heart. And as I think about this, I was thinking about just humility in general. And so my family, it's an older picture, but being a parent, let me just tell you, whenever that day comes, being a parent is like the most humbling thing. And it's not humbling because your kids, you'll be in some public setting, and then that's when they decide to ask the most embarrassing question, or that's when they decide to have a fit about something, and you know everybody's looking like, oh, somebody needs to control that kid. Oh my goodness, like, when I have a kid, they will never act that way. It's because you don't know. They have a mind of their own, and so it's embarrassing. But that's not the humbling part that I'm talking about. What I have noticed is, as we continue to raise Paxton and Preston, as we're raising them up, we'll see different traits or attitudes or thought patterns that are in them naturally. And we can see, man, if you continue thinking, continue reasoning, continue acting this way, you're setting yourself up for a very, very hard life, a life of isolation, a life where you're not going to be able to hold down a job. I mean, it's not good. We need to correct some of this stuff. And the humbling part is, every time that I sit there and like, how can I break this down? How can we break this down and talk to them in a way that they can understand? What's the root of the problem? And I get to the root of the problem before I'm talking with them, like, oh my goodness, it's in me. All the time. And basically what I find is, man, maybe I didn't really ever deal with that. Maybe I just learned to mask it better. Let me give you an example. This is something that we're seeing more and more and more, is that our kids, they'll have this idea, and they'll think, it's Friday night, so Saturday morning, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get up, and I'm going to play on the Wii for 3 hours, and then I'm going to have 5 friends come over, and they're all going to bring their devices, and then we're all going to get together and gather, and we're going to play Fortnite for a while. We're going to do that for probably 4 hours, and then, after that, Mom and Dad, they're going to take us to Yeast Star, and we're just going to stuff ourselves filled with all of that good buffet food. It's going to be incredible and amazing, but we'll leave us some room because when we get home, then, because the 5 are going to spend the night, and that's 5 each, so there's going to be 10 extra people here in our house. And, they're going to build a big bonfire in the backyard. We're going to cook these s'mores. This is going to be awesome. And then Mom and Dad, they're going to do something that they've never done before. They're going to kind of let us just be and do our own thing. And what we're going to do is they're going to go ahead and undo the PIN code so we can watch a rated R scary movie that we've never been able to do before. And this is going to be awesome and epic. And then when that ends, we're going to just talk until like 4 in the morning. It's going to be so incredible. And so they're so excited about this reality. Their plans are right there. And they're like, yes, Saturday's going to be the best thing ever. And they're living on this plan. And they'll say like, hey, I want to have 5 people over tomorrow. And we're like, what are you talking about? It's Friday night. Have you asked anybody? Well, no. Well, do you just think that their schedules revolve around you? And I don't think it's going to work, bud. What? And listen, tomorrow, your mom and I, we had this idea. I thought we would all load in the car. We'd drive down to Houston. We'd race cars and go play a game at an old arcade. Then we go swimming at your grandparents' house, and we go out to a really nice fancy. You guys are the worst parents ever. This is horrible. Always making us do bad stuff. And we sit there going, what is happening? I'm a horrible parent because I want to take you down and have you race go-karts and play arcade games and swim and feed you wonderful food? Like, what? And my temptation then is to enter in like, you spoiled little, and I have to stop and realize what has happened is they've made these plans in isolation and not based on reality. They've never checked in with the authority that's over them as they begun to make them. And because of that, it leads to incredible frustration, incredible anger, and they end up viewing us as unloving, uncaring, horrible, lazy parents. And as I was trying to explain, like, do you guys see this pattern happening over and over again? You get your hopes set up so much, you think it's going to be reality, but you've never asked. Or you've asked and it's been answered already. And then you get all angry again. So can we shorten that cycle? When you're planning, invite us into that process. Let us speak into that. And as that's incredibly helpful to them, I'm like, oh my goodness. I do the same thing. I make my plans. I think this is how life should go. And when it doesn't work out how I want, I get really mad. And really the only thing that's changed is that instead of throwing a wild fit and yelling at people, is maybe I just cope differently. Maybe I go and I just binge watch on Netflix. Maybe I search and try to find the most awesome and epic electronic gadget that I have to have that's going to complete me, that's going to soothe the aching that's within. Other people I've talked to, they've coped with alcohol. Others have coped with porn. Others have coped with fitness. Others have coped with their jobs or with their education. We have all these plans and all these different coping mechanisms, but we never really deal with the root issue. That idea that we make our plans in isolation thinking that we know what is best for us. And when it doesn't work out, we begin to think that God is mean, unloving, and he doesn't care. We throw a big old wild fit. And the longer and longer that we do that, that narrative that we're writing in our mind becomes our reality. And it's sad. We view the God who sent his son to take a place that was ours, a horrible place, to give us a place that he has earned freely. We view him as unloving. We view him as selfish. And we distance ourselves from the very one who longs for a deep and intimate relationship with us. All because we made these plans without ever checking in with the authority over us. And why don't we do it? Because of pride. So let me read with you, because you can read along. James chapter 4, 13 and 14 here says, "Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a city and spend a year there and engage in business and we'll make a profit. Yet you do not know what your life will be like tomorrow. You are just a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and also do this or that. But as it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. Therefore, to the one who knows the right thing to do and does not do it, to him it is sin." I think there's a lot of stuff, fun stuff going on here, and it's actually building into a cooler, larger even narrative, but we're just going to park here, and we're going to look at two things. We're going to look at planning, how we plan. It's going to reveal our heart. It reveals the heart. And then we're going to look at the warning, because James gives us a warning there. So as we dive into this, I want us to think about this. He starts off here. Oh, I think somebody's reading this for us, I think. Is that right? We've got a reader? Okay, we got a reader. James 4:13. I just read it, but you'll read it much better than I.
"Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such and such city and spend a year there and engage in business and make a profit."
Thank you. Now, when you read this, do you guys ever stop and go like, who's you? I mean, come now, you. Who's you? And does it matter who you is? Like, who's he talking to? Is he talking to the people that he's writing to? Or is he talking about somebody else? Like, who is this? And the reason that it matters, if you study as you walk through this passage and then into 5, you're going to see that you that he's talking to, there's tremendous judgment that's coming. And there's an attitude of like rejection almost from God because of all the bad things that you do. But we know that James is writing to believers, and we know that our salvation is secure. So it's important to stop and think, who's the you? Because otherwise we might come up with some really weird theology that it's possible for you to lose your salvation. So it's important when we read Scripture to slow down just a little bit and ask some questions. Who's the you? And so commentators are divided. Let me tell you, people are divided on who this you is. And so I'm just going to share with you who I think it is, and you can disagree or whatever. You go with it however you want. But here's what I think it is. I think that what James is doing is he is pulling in an attitude of the world, something that's commonly accepted in the world, and bringing that in as basically a fictitious character, and now talking to somebody other than he's writing to. And here's why I think that. There's a couple different reasons, but I'll give you just two really fast. One is, there we go, brethren is used 15 times in here. He's always like, brethren, my beloved brethren, 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 when he's talking to his readers, and all of a sudden he just goes, you. So it's just kind of a little bit, and it's weird because if you go back and you'll see there's a gap where it's now, come now you, in another section, come now you, and then you'll see, now my brethren. So it's like he's coming back to talk to somebody else. So that's just one reason. And then the other reason, this thing is taking a long time, but in 2:18, he's done this before. You remember when we were talking about works? And he says, but someone may say, and he brings in a fictitious objector, and he begins to dialogue with this fictitious person. So he's done it before, and it kind of just makes sense because of the weight of things that are happening there. And so I view what's happening here. James is doing this. Wow, that was really weird. There it is. Cool. Essentially, he's saying, y'all living like the world, it's bad. So y'all living like the world is bad. Now see, the world, it says life is all about you. And it also says take advantage of people to get ahead. But y'all, here's the deal. And if you study and slow down and read from here on, you'll see this. You'll be like, oh, this kind of makes sense. And you're like, why did you make us look at all that stuff? Because it's important. The Word of God is living and active. Sharper than a double-edged sword, right? And it's penetrating our hearts, and it's looking to bring about transformation in us. And I love that we did a Bible drill up here, which was awesome, and I was glad I didn't compete because I probably would have got out the first round. I mean, people were fast. It was incredible. You went to state, right? I mean, I would have been dominated. It was just, I didn't. Anyway, do we know God's word? Do we spend time in God's word? And when we do we slow down and ask some questions and interact with God's word? Because if we don't, we're really doing a disservice to ourselves. We're missing things. And so it's really kind of easy just to slow down and be like, you? Well, who's the you? Well, let's just think through this. Let's back up and read. If I need to, let me read some other help. Let me dialogue with somebody else. And they'd be like, we're just having lunch. Why are you asking me who you is? It doesn't really matter. And you're like, okay, you're probably the wrong person to talk about with this. So instead, let me tell you about, can I tell you who Jesus is? I know who Jesus is. Do you really? I mean, are you enthralled by things? Don't you want to get into his word and know who he is? Just eat your fries. Whoa, okay. Testy. But we need to be men and women who want to be in God's word and interact with it. So there you go. Now, this is crazy. Here's what happened, I can tell you. So there's a transition effect called like Apple Magic, okay? And I only used it a few times, but then I copied and pasted the slide, and it's now on every slide. So this is like an adventure. This is going to be really fun to see these transitions. James 4:13, I'll read this one because it's here. Come now, you who say, you're like, Todd, why don't you just highlight the whole thing? Well, I wanted you to see a few things here. Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow, we will go to such and such a city and spend a year there and engage in business and make a profit. This is awesome. And even went smaller. That was crazy. I want you guys to see this. There is massive pride in whoever that you is. And it kind of lines up with the worldly wisdom that's all about you. Because they're assuming, today or tomorrow, they're assuming they have any control over they're going to have a tomorrow. There's nothing higher than me. I will have tomorrow. Nothing will stop me from having a tomorrow. And do you know that's just not the case? I mean, do you realize that you are not guaranteed tomorrow? I am not guaranteed tomorrow. I was thinking about this. It's been years ago, but my sister and her family, they're living in San Antonio on a street called Stockton. 515 Stockton. If you want to drive by their old house, you can do that. But it's right by North Star Mall. It's the mall with the boots in front. If you've been to San Antonio, okay, it's within walking distance. It's really close there. And so I had walked to the mall, and I'm walking back, and I'm just thinking about the things of God. And I'm thinking a lot about like security and safety and how I'm just kind of a control freak, and I want to control everything. And as I'm walking back, I could take you to the sidewalk. And right at where I was when I came to this conclusion, I was like, you know what? No matter how much money that I have to hire the absolute best doctors, I could buy the greatest house and build the highest security walls, and I still cannot guarantee safety to myself. And if God were to give me a family, to my family, I could have a heart attack. Some strange disease, some strange virus could somehow come over and infect me. A satellite could fall from the sky and just decide to hit me and wipe me out. I mean, at that point, I realized I have such little control over whether I'm given tomorrow or not. And so I have one of two options. I can either sit there and say, I will be in charge of my own safety, my own security, and it's all dependent upon me, in which case that's just not true. So I can live a lie, or I can realize that, man, yes, I can take some steps, but ultimately, God, it's in your hands. And that's the truth. Whoever this you is has the attitude of, we'll have tomorrow. Nothing stronger. Nothing will stop us. Well, not only that, and so they have the control over the duration of their life. They're also, we're going to go to such and such a city. They're like, we're the ultimate authority. I go where I want to go. I live where I want to live. I don't need to check in with anybody. I know I do. And we're going to spend a year there. Well, I'm going to control exactly how long. I'm going to, again, assuming we're going to be given a year. But I'll leave when I want to leave, when it's right for me. And we're going to engage in business. They have control over their vocation. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And we're going to make a profit. And then really, when you think about that, boy, the arrogance of that. We're going to make a profit because we're going to figure out a way to be better than everybody else. We're going to be more savvy than anybody else. We're just smarter, better, more awesome. And so, of course, it's all in our control. There is pride and pride and pride and pride in this. That's who James is talking to. But that's the attitude of the world, is it not? You decide what you want to do. You decide how long you want to do that. You decide who you want to do that with. Just do your thing. We're all winners. Essentially, we say this: I will do what I want, where I want, when I want, for as long as I want, and I'll go about it however I want. Ow. Is that you? Is that how you planned your day? Is that how you're planning your weekend? It's me sometimes. If I'm not stepping on your toes yet, let me move forward. Genesis 1:27. Let me just back up here. I will do what I want, where I want, when I want, for as long as I want, and I'll go about it however I want. Compare that to what our purpose was. Genesis 1:27.
So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them.
Awesome. We've talked about this. We've looked at this verse a lot of times, that we've been created with a purpose, and that purpose is to image God. Not ourselves, to image God. That's what we're here to do. In all that we do, we are just to display him, his nature, who he is. And that's what we're designed for. And when we function as what we're designed for, that's really when we find the greatest satisfaction, which is truly, truly incredible. That doesn't look at all like what we just looked at, does it? I'll do whatever I want, whenever I want, however I want, with whoever I want, for as long as I want. Me. Let me continue to step on our toes here. These next blank years, I will go to Texas A&M and I will get my degree in blank. After that, I'll leave and get a job in blank, whether it's a location or a field. Then I'm going to get married and I'll have a family. Ouch. Right? I mean, ow. How many of us maybe prayed intensely about it beforehand, but it's just that prayer like, I got in. So of course I'm going to go do this. This is the right school. It's the best school to do it at. It just makes the most natural sense. There's money that's involved here. It's going to be amazing. I'm gifted in this, so I'm just going to go ahead and do this because, of course, that's what he wants to do. I like getting to do what I get to do, and people are going to call me this really great thing. And when I get done, then that's when I'll go ahead and be like, oh, okay, I can relax a little bit, and now I can really be on the hunt for a spouse. If a spouse happens before, that's fine, but then I'll get married. I'm going to have some kids. The audacity of us to do that. And we could switch this around however we wanted to. And I'm guilty of this. So listen, I'm not sitting here saying, shame on you if this is how we are approaching life. Many of us do. How many of us then are holding to that loosely? How many would be like, you're a month away from graduating. You have one last thing, small thing to do. And God prompts your heart and is like, this is not at all what I have for you. I have something else. Honestly, I'd be like, it's a month away. It's one small thing. I'd have a really hard time saying, you know what? I think this wasn't for me. The time, the energy, and the money that I have spent pursuing this was not at all where I was supposed to be. And God has made that abundantly clear. I'd have a really hard time. I think I'd even have a hard time trying to say, hey, Aaron, here, I'm thinking about this. I know we've spent all this time. I'm just thinking about a year ago coming into like DTS graduation. Like there's just one thing I have left to do. And you know what? I just think this was wrong. We weren't supposed to go do this. I think I need to hit pause. We need to step away. We just need to back away. It would take her a while when she got her mind around it. She'd be like, okay, I understand. Walk me through what's going on. But I think maybe initially she'd be like, are you crazy? We've sacrificed so much. This is the most important thing. Get done already. You know? It's seminary. God loves seminary. And I'm not saying any of this to make you feel bad because planning is important. We'll get to that in a second. But I just want us to really sit and be uncomfortable for just a brief moment. So many times we approach life that I'll take care of this, and once I have all these ducks in a row, then God, you can do what you want. I don't know. That's kind of an uncomfortable thing because I don't know who that image is. Me or thee. See, the problem is my plan is set, and now I'm so fixated on it that I refuse to give it up. And it becomes an idol. I've elevated it above God. Planning's not bad. Sitting there and saying, I got accepted to A&M, and I'm going to go ahead and get my master's in this or my doctorate in this. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's going to take about this much time. There's nothing wrong with that. I want to excel. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is when we begin to elevate that and say, there is no way I will ever lay that down. And so we got these weird things. I remember 5th grade. This is crazy. So 5th grade, hanging out, San Antonio, Northwest Crossing Elementary School, go Redbirds. Actually, Cardinals, but yeah, anyway, I was a Cardinal citizen several times for holding doors open for people. Anyway, they gather us all together in the cafeteria. We all sit down on the floor, and they bring in coach with like from the middle school, I think, and so he has, the polyester shorts that are too short, and he comes in, all right, guys, we're going to talk today, and it's going to be awesome. We're going to talk about athletics. You're going to have some opportunity. And so he begins to tell us, he pulls out this of course, it wasn't PowerPoint. It was like an overhead projector that you, slide things on. And so he slides this thing out there and has this long bar, this is the number of students that play middle school athletics. And then it got smaller to the green bar. This is the number that actually then play high school athletics. And then it got a lot more narrow. This is the number that play collegiate athletics. Just all divisions, not just Division I. This is all divisions. And this little thin line, it was actually thinner than that, but I want to make sure you could see it. That's how many actually go on to play in the pros. Now, his point was, don't put your hope in athletics. Get your education, study hard. But little Todd's sitting there looking, going, okay, yeah, I'll do it. Challenge accepted. I may be vertically challenged, but I'm fast. Let's go. Game on. And so the narrative was, from that moment, really, I remember I will excel at some sport so much that I will become pro. And there was a debate at that time in my life, do I do soccer? And I was excelling at soccer, or do I do tennis? And then I went to one game, really, and I remember playing in the game and looking and feeling like I'm giving everything and seeing teammates kind of dog it. And I was like, you know what? I'm tired of relying on other people for my future. So done with this sport. I'm going to go after tennis, because if I lose, it's only on me. Okay? I mean, you can see the humility, right? Okay. So yeah, I try out for the middle school team. I've told this story before. You come in, and we're sitting there, and I don't know, there was 40 students who were there, and Mr. Benson, he's the teacher, and he looks around at everybody, and he locks eyes and says, some of us aren't going to make the team. And it's okay, because everybody was taller than me. And he goes on telling me, just looking, and it's okay, you tried out. I'm like, why are you just looking at me, man? What's going on? Yeah, I've got a wood racket while everybody else has aluminum and graphite, but that's okay. There's more to a person than the racket. And so we went out, and not only did I make the team, I played number 1. And people are like, what? I've got a graphite racket. And I'm like a foot taller than you. I'm like, I know, but I can beat you. It was just this crazy thing that was going on. And so I played in 7th grade, and then 8th grade, and some people had growth spurts, and I'm still not. And so I'm seeing people's belt buckles, and it's just crazy. But I had an aluminum racket then, so man, it's going awesome. And so again, we play. Some new kids moved in, played, and again, number 1 on the team. Then we move on to high school, and now here we are, Texas tennis, high school, kind of a big deal. And there it is again. Everybody gathered around, a lot more people. Some of us aren't going to make the team. And that's okay. I'm like, why are you looking at me? My wooden racket is gone. I now have graphite. Come on. And as a freshman, played number 1 at a very large high school. And then we moved to Iowa. Oh, death sentence to tennis. But continued, and we was just begging, hey, college players, would you play with me? No, you're little, and where's your wooden racket? And so but continued to develop, and then played college tennis. I mean, I was set. Chose my final school, had to transfer. Let me just back up 2 steps. Went to school, have my scholarship, playing great tennis, and they get a phone call saying, hey, there's been this title that has passed, and a lot of men's sports are suffering from it, and so there's no more men's tennis program for you. No more scholarship for you. Thank you. I got a week. I've already signed my apartment lease. What? The line. You're messing with the line. So I came back, and I had a year of just being a regular student, but I'd never been a regular student before. And during the time, it was really sweet. God just really captivated my heart. It was really awesome. It was kind of this cool wake-up call. But then it was like, yeah, I'm using my gifts and talents because I got a line to get to. And so chose my next school, not because of its reputation, because they had a brand new coach that his big selling thing was, I've seen you play. I can't offer you a whole lot of money because we just don't have a whole lot of money. But I can guarantee you this. I can get you on the tour. I'll work with you as much as you want. I'm like, I'm in. So I went to the school, and a week before school starts, I get a phone call. Hey, Todd, this is the coach. Hey, man, I'm so excited. Yeah, I got some news. Kansas, they're number 5 in the nation right now. They just hired me on as their head coach, so I won't be your coach. I'm like, you're the only reason that I'm coming. Like, what is going on? The line. During that time, all that mattered was the line. If you could not help move me that direction, I didn't really want a whole lot to do with you. I mean, I would be cordial. I'd be nice to you, and we'd be friends and stuff. But ultimately, if I had to choose between the two, no, I got to hit the court. Yet God was continually trying to woo me more and more and more. But I had my plan set up, and so I lived that way from 5th grade. You're like 10 years old. From 10 years old until 21 years old, this was it. This was my plan, and I was not laying it down for anybody. And the coolest thing is, God, during those moments of, there is no more program, have a year. And then, hey, I was going to be your coach, but I'm not going to be your coach. And then finally, the last year, to feel the pop in the shoulder and realize it's over. Had I not had those other moments where God was building up my identity, it would have crushed me. But the whole point of the story was I had my plan. It was all about me, and it dictated everything that I did. It was an idol. And it needed to be laid down. And God, graciously and lovingly, would not allow that to continue to satisfy. I was thinking about that, actually. I was just walking around, walked outside while there was singing going on. I came back in. But what I was thinking about is each of these steps, when I made the blue line, it didn't do anything for my longing in my heart. I didn't celebrate like, I'm awesome. When I made the green line, there wasn't any like, yes, it didn't fill anything. When I made the orange line again, I'm like, that's just natural. That's what's supposed to happen, right? I mean, there was just no thankfulness in the middle of that. There was no awe in the middle of that because I was consumed by this. It stole joy, and there was no satisfaction and no hope. I had made an idol, and that's usually what happens with idols. Romans 8:29 says, somebody's got it, this.
For those whom God foreknew, he also predestined to become conformed to the image of his Son.
Thank you. For those of you who foreknew that people are coming to Christ, he's predestined. There's something you can guarantee as a follower of Christ. There is one thing for certain that you can bank on, that he is at work to conform you to reflect his Son. Because remember, your original purpose was to image God. And Jesus, fully man, fully God, imaged him really, really well. And so the purpose of our life, he's restoring that. And I am now at work to mold you and shape you. When we have let me just move to it. Come on, there we go. When we have our plans up so high, it's like this. I made Aaron this beautiful glass flower. Okay, I was up in Michigan, and I've never made a glass anything. And so they like stick it in the furnace, they come out, and they're like, okay, pull on it with these big tweezers, and you're like, ugh! And so at first you can pull really easy. It's really pliable. Like, oh, okay, but then it quickly cools off, and then you can't pull it anymore. And so they have to go and they have to heat it back up, and they come back over, and you pull some more, and they get, I can't pull anymore, and you come back in. And this process goes back and forth until you end up with a really beautiful thing. Next time you're at our house, just ask to see it. You will be blown away by the blue flower. But I tell you that to tell you this. When we have our plans that we have made all about us, that we assume control over everything, we're like just a piece of glass that has stopped being warm. It's no longer pliable. You can't do any more shaping. The only way that shaping can occur is to heat it back up. We want to stay pliable. But many of us, we've gotten cold, and we need to be heated back up. And that's why James is writing his book. He's writing saying, y'all are spiritually immature because of pride. You have your own schedules, you have your own agendas, and because of that, God can't do what he wants to continue to do. And so things need to change. You need to lay down those idols. When we elevate ourselves, when we elevate our idol, when we elevate anything above God, we become like that glass as it's cooling off, and no longer can we pull on it. It has to be heated back up. And it's amazing. We talk to so many people who are at their wits' end, so many people that just tragedy after tragedy and like heartbreak after heartbreak. And I'm like, you are the closest you will ever be to experiencing the amazing magnitude of who God is if you'll just hold on. Don't go to your old coping mechanisms. Don't do it. Don't run there. And most people are like, nope, gotta run. Gotta go back to my idols. I gotta go back to my old habits. I gotta go back to my old patterns. I don't want to change anything because to change is unknown territory. At least when I come back to my porn, come back to my alcohol, I know what to expect. I know the cycle. And so we choose to live that way. It's cold, cold glass, no longer being easily moldable. God will continue to have us have things not satisfy, maybe have an injury, maybe not have the job that we hope to get, or maybe we'll actually get it and it won't satisfy us. He won't allow it to satisfy us. And we'll be even more frustrated with God. How come you're not allowing these things? Because it's an idol. It's above me. James 4:14 through 15. Before we read it, he's just given us what not to do. He's just showed us what planning with pride at the heart, what double-minded planning looks like. It's all about you. And now he's going to give us how we should plan, which is really kind of neat. So when you're ready, James chapter 4:14 through 15.
Yet you do not know what your life will be like tomorrow. You're just a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and also do this or that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, this is really kind of an incredible thing. You don't know. You have no idea what tomorrow holds. You have no control over tomorrow. It's a gift if you walk into it. Have you said thank you? That requires a lot of humility, a lot of brokenness there to say, not me, but thee. So he gives us two perspectives here to go about godly planning for our lives. And the first one is this: we don't hold the future, God does. We know that. Listen, we know that, and we will all happily sit around the table and go, oh, yes, I know that. It's just a lovely thing. It just makes me feel so comforted, and it's just wonderful. Praise Jesus. We'll do that here, and then we'll go get in our cars, and we'll forget all about that truth and go ahead back with our little plans, back with our pyramid, and we'll go after the very thing that is God actually despises because we've elevated it above him. Do we keep that perspective all the time? Just so you know, it's not me saying these things. Here are a couple of verses here. Proverbs 27, verse 1.
Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring.
Perfect. And stay right there. You got one more coming your way. Go ahead. You got it.
Jesus said to them, it is not for you to know times or, I don't know what that word is.
Just keep going.
Okay, which the Father has fixed by his own authority, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come.
Okay, you're probably like, why in the world did you even put this up here other than to stomp us with words? No, I put it here because do you see this? That Jesus said to them, and you keep going on, the Father is fixed by his own authority, and then it says, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come. Do you see what he's doing here? It hasn't happened yet, but he who stands outside of time is saying, I know what the future is. I know exactly what's going to happen. And when the Spirit does come, because he is coming, how do I know? Because I'm God, and that's where he is going. When he does, this will happen. This is God saying, I know the future. You do not. I do. Truly, truly incredible. So perspective number one, we don't hold the future, God does. But then the other thing that's really going to help us have godly planning is the second thing he talks about there is our life is like vapor when compared to eternity. James again, 4:14.
You are just a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away.
Awesome. He wants us to be reminded. Life goes on and on and on and on. Eternity is a very long time. And we've looked at things like this before. So you got the line with the dot and the arrow. The dot and this is not to scale, the dot is your life here and now on earth. Okay? What's beyond the dot and continues is eternity. Do we look at things through the eternal lens? When breakups happen in our lives, do we respond only in how this impacts me here today? Or do we look beyond that? When somebody is rude and ugly to me, do I only look at here and now? Or do I look beyond that? See, we got to understand that we sometimes make a really big deal about things that we probably don't need to make such a big deal about. I'm not excusing other people's behaviors if they've wronged you, but sometimes our reactions are a little bit bigger than what they need to be. Because when we have our eternal lenses on, when we're looking at the big picture, we have much better perspective. And then that class that we didn't pass doesn't plague us so much. That relationship that ended, it still hurts, but it doesn't define us. We're able to move on because we have an eternal lens and we realize, man, our life is just here on earth. It's just like that. And if it's that and that's your whole life, where in that snap is that one problem that you're dealing with that just has sucked the life out of you? We need to be thinking differently about life as a whole. No, we'll keep going. When we plan, keep this perspective. We don't hold the future, God does. Our life is like vapor when compared to eternity. Wow, it went off the screen. Flexible is what it actually says. If you really want to know your plans, if you're planning from an eternal perspective, if you're living from an eternal perspective, or if you're living from a operation of pride, let me just ask you, how flexible are you when plans change? And I hate that because I'm a planner, and I want everything to go in my little buckets, in my little areas, in my little segments, and I don't want it to spill over to other areas of my life. I don't want that. I don't like that. It frustrates me very much. I don't like flexibility. As a matter of fact, when I first started as a youth director, this is a long, long time ago, I remember we were doing a retreat in England, and so you don't know what the weather's going to be like in England. So we're sitting there, and we're going, what are we going to do? And I kid you not, I had 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had 5 different plans, 5 different schedules. There was nothing that could unfold during that retreat that I was not prepared for. I had enough stuff if we had to be inside the entire time. I had all the games needed. If we're going to be outside all the time, I had all the games we need. If something in between, I could cover it. I didn't have to think about it. I had to look at, we're now in number 4. Rain half a day on Saturday, sunshine the latter half. Got it. Here's what we're going to do. It was a thing of beauty. It really, really was. But that just shows you how inflexible I was. And as time has gone on, I found myself more and more and more flexible, more and more okay when unexpected things happen because it's not about me. And on the scale of things, whatever is unfolding is just that. It's just a blink of an eye. And there's peace with that. There's hope with that. When we become eternally minded. And it's hard to have that perspective because everything around us is crying out something different. Remember that wisdom, when we talk about wisdom, it's earthly, it's natural, it's demonic. I mean, it's hard to have that mind shift because everything around you is crying out temporary matters. Here and now matters. What you want matters most. And so it's hard to plan in a way that is always holding things loosely. James 4:15 says, somebody got it? I'll just read it. I'm right here, JT. You'll have another verse, don't worry. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and also do this or that. If the Lord wills, we will live and also do this. It's, Lord, you're greater. So kind of a practical example about this is, this has now been 5 years ago. A little bit more than 5 years ago. I was living in Santiago, Chile. That's, down here with the Please note, with the mountains and the buildings, and you could ski in the morning and surf in the afternoon because it's really small, no humidity, the temperature never really gets above like 90 is really a hot day, but it's a dry heat. It's like desert heat, and it doesn't really freeze. You only have a few days of rain. I mean, that's where I lived. And then I met this woman, College Station. Was told by some Aggies down in Santiago that if God had a place to live on earth, he would choose College Station. You know, I'm just saying scenery is a little different, but I'm loving my time here, fully loving my time here. So as we were talking, it just became more and more evident that we really think that God is doing something here. Okay, we really think that God is bringing us together. And you're like, what are you talking about, Todd? I think you guys have been married for 20 years. Just keep coming back because over the summer we'll have a session. We'll just talk about like this. But anyway, here's a shorter version. I just want to hone in on this. Is we wanted to be really wise. Yeah, I think you're beautiful and amazing and awesome and lovely and hubba, you know? And she thinks maybe the same thing about me. And man, I really think that God is maybe leading us to marriage. But we were really, really cautious because even if that's what I want, above that, I want what he wants. And so all the time we would say this. We would say, if the Lord leads. And we would shorten it because that just takes too long. IT too well. If the T Lord, if the Lord leads. Oh, two L's. IT, two L's. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, Lord and leads. And so everything was always if the Lord leads. Well, golly, what's it going to look like next year when you move up to College Station? Well, listen, if the Lord leads, I think it would look like this. Well, what's it going to look like if the Lord leads? That's how we planned. And it was really freeing because if we're the one leading, it all depends upon us. And that's a lot of stress, a lot of pressure. You got to hold it all together. And here's the sad thing. If it's all about you and all about what you want, and you're moving towards these things that God has already told us are not going to satisfy because that's not what you're designed for, even if you get it, it doesn't satisfy, and now you're frustrated and you're mad at yourself because you must have certainly done something wrong. No, it's just if the Lord leads. He's the end game, not what you think the end game is. If the Lord leads. So I was thinking about that, and I thought about this. Many people would say, oh, if God allows, that's just a given. Of course. We always know if God leads, I'll go do whatever. It's just a given. Bull. Can I call your bull right now? Can we just say, it's just bull. It's a church answer. What you're saying is, I'll do my own thing, and if he happens to write on the wall that I shouldn't do that, and then on top of that, I walk outside and somebody says, I don't even know you, but I think your name is Todd, and I really don't think you should be doing this. God told me to come and talk to you. Okay, la, 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 la. And then if I happen to go and a dog starts talking to me, maybe I'll realize that that's God saying no. When we just say, oh, if God allows, that's just a given, we really do a disservice to ourselves, to God, and to others around us. Think how different your conversations would be. Hey, what are your plans after school? Well, man, I'm hoping to go here and do this, but God may have different plans. God may have different plans. Like you're always answering, God may have different plans. What do you even mean by that, man? Can I just tell you, do you have like 30 seconds? I guess I give you 30 seconds. See, I just believe that we were created with a purpose, and the purpose was to image God, and that was shattered. And so all the world is now looking to image itself and doesn't want anything to do with God, but that's my purpose. And so I trust him to lead better than me. And so, yeah, I think it means I'm going to have a job over here, but God may have something totally different for me. Okay, that's cool. It's good for you. Just don't talk about that again. That's fine, but we do a disservice because we just assume, oh, that's just a given. Why don't we talk more about that? Why, when we have conversations with each other who we know are believers, how come we don't throw it in there? Oh, they just know that. Do they really? Do they live that way? How come our vocabulary isn't changed more and more and more when we're talking about, hey, what are you going to do over the summer? Well, I was really hoping to go on this mission trip to El Salvador, if the Lord leads. Well, how are you going to know if the Lord's leading? Well, I've sent out fundraising and I've got like $1 in. He may not be leading me there, but I'm okay. If he says no, then I stay here, and that's okay. Because more than the trip to El Salvador, more than that, I want him. If the Lord leads. Wow, your faith is really impressive. Can you tell me more about it? I would love to. You know, you don't know where those conversations are going to go, but we need to begin to not just, really, it's to say this, if God, it's just a given. That's really kind of arrogant, which is interesting. The next verse we look at here is interesting. But so how do you plan? I will do what I want, where I want, when I want, for as long as I want, and I'll go about it however I want, or if the Lord leads. How do you set your plans? I mentioned arrogance here. There's a warning. It'll come up. Here we go. James chapter 4, 16 and 17.
But as it is, you boast in your arrogance, all such boasting is evil. Therefore, to one who knows the right thing to do and does not do it, to him it is sin.
Thank you. But as it is, you boast in your arrogance. Yeah, it's a given. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to do what I want, how I want, as long as I want, where I want. I'm going to do it. Yeah, God. It's a given. But as it is, you boast in your arrogance. I know. He wouldn't have gifted me this way with these skills if he didn't want me to go do this. I know best. That's evil. All such boasting is evil. He doesn't want us to miss that. Planning, going about things your own way, as long as you think for your own glory, essentially, it's evil. That's not a new concept. We already go back 3-4 weeks ago when we were talking about worldly wisdom, earthly, natural, and demonic. That attitude is evil. I got this one here. There is a way which seems right to a person, but its end is the way that leads to death. Proverbs 16:25. Death, separation. When we demand our own way, this looks good to me, I'm just going to go do it. Who cares if the Lord leads? I'm going to go do it. I'm creating distance because I'm not inviting God into that process. I'm not allowing him space into it. And so death occurs, distance occurs, friction and tension occurs. And then you wonder why the nearness of God is not your reality. Because we're planning based about me, myself, and I. Imagine how different biblical history would be if people refused to surrender their plans. Have you ever thought about that? Quick story for you. If we refuse to set our plans down, that's the problem. My plan is set and I won't give up. So you got Philip in Acts chapter 8. We actually looked at Acts chapter 8. I think it was last week. But Acts chapter 8, Philip is, everybody has to scatter because they're starting to persecute the church. Okay, so everybody runs away. And as they're all running away thinking it's doom, how could God do this? Philip goes to Samaria. Of course, they were supposed to take the gospel to Samaria, but they were refusing to do that until they were all scattered. So anyway, so he goes to Samaria, and crazy things happen. People are just coming to believe left and right. Like Philip had a gift with that people group. Incredible things are happening. People are being saved all over the place. And so other apostles come up, and they're there, and they are baptizing folks, and crazy things are going on. And so they're like, okay, well, here we are. Now let's go back. Our plan is to go back to Jerusalem. Let's tell people about what's going on. So they're heading back to Jerusalem. As they're heading back, they're stopping to other Samaritan villages because that's his jam. He's really good at talking to the Samaritans. And as he's doing that, lo and behold, something happens. Acts chapter 8, 25, 26.
So when they had solemnly testified and spoken to the word of the Lord, they started back to Jerusalem and were preaching the gospel to many villages of the Samaritans. But an angel of the Lord spoke to Philip, saying, "Get up and go south to the road that descends from Jerusalem to Gaza."
God, I'm in the middle of talking to the Samaritans. Like, this is my jam. I'm gifted in this area. Get up and leave. What? No. From this, we're going to Jerusalem to everybody like, hey, let's celebrate. Awesome stuff's going on. That's my plan. And so that's what Philip did. He just said, how different would that story be? No. This is not at all what he did. He's like, okay. And he goes. And he meets an Ethiopian eunuch. And he's like, well, I'm here at the road, and this guy is up hanging out, and he's reading something, and God says, go up to him. He's like, okay, that wasn't my plan. I mean, I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing, but he's very responsive, and so he moves up, and he begins to explain scriptures to him, and boom, presto, a new believer in Christ. All because Philip was not saying, my plan is my precious, because he held it loosely. and said, this is what I'm going to do unless the Lord leads differently. Normal growing faith is flexible. Are you? Here it is. Big 2. Planning reveals our heart. And there was a warning given that when we refuse, we go away with arrogance, it's evil. It's going to cause some separation. Doesn't mean you lose your salvation, but your enjoyment, your walk with Jesus, will be impaired. So, are our plans held loosely? Or are our plans set and God needs to work around it? Normal growing faith is flexible. Your challenge this week, there's actually 2 of them, but one I wanted to highlight here. Are there life plans that you are unwilling to let go of? Should the Lord lead you in a different direction? We know the right answer is, of course, I give anything up. As long as there's a dog talking to me, handwriting on the wall. I mean, we all know the right answer is yes, but is it the real answer? I mean, so many of us, myself included, we've been disappointed by how life has looked because it hasn't looked like what I planned, and we're bitter and we're angry at God. And we've never stopped to consider maybe the plans that I had for myself were all based on me and not an ounce on thee. Maybe I elevated them and made them an idol. And if there is an area, a plan, whether it's your career, whether it's your relationships, or I don't know, what makes that so important to you? Why is it so important? Why are you elevating it above God? We have an incredible God who desires close intimacy with him. Let us be moldable. Let us not be cold and needing to be stuck back in the fire. Let us stay warm, pliable, so he can continue his work in us. Let's pray.